Neymar, Lautaro Martínez, even Bernardo Silva. If you came here for me to explain about how Barcelona could possibly afford any of those very expensive players, you came to the wrong place. Taking into account Barca's current financial situation, as evidenced by the Artur for Pjanic deal, and exasperated by a global pandemic, these superstars just aren't possible. But with a number of players potentially on their way out, and I'm not just talking about the likes of Luis Suárez or Jordi Alba, I'm talking more of the Rafinhas of the world, Barcelona may be able to raise some funds. Tifo likes to call these sensible transfers, but I'm going with realistic transfers. Some of these names are names you've already heard, some of them are names that I know you probably haven't heard, but they are all investments that Barcelona would be wise to bring to the Camp Nou to prepare for the future. Hi, I'm Dan Hilton. This is a Barcelona Podcast YouTube exclusive. Hey everybody, I guess you could say it's Editor Dan here. I recorded the intro and outro of this realistic transfers video prior to any Lionel Messi leaving the club news. So you'll notice that my eyes are a little bit darker, there's some facial hair here, and it's been a rough 48 hours or so. Before this realistic transfers video, yes, things have changed because the club is certainly going to be looking for a superstar, but in terms of what they can do this window, I still think the names that I originally picked for this script, which are younger players that can be found around the 30 million, 25, 30 million euro mark, are still reasonable and realistic transfers for this window. So even though Messi changes the entire face of the club, I'm just letting you know that the names that I've picked are going to be the ones that continue to be the ones that I think that they should find this window. Messi potentially leaving defines all of this, but I still want to name players that are on the younger side, so I'm actually sticking with so many of the choices that I originally picked. And even with Messi, or without Messi, maybe Koeman thought he would play a false nine, but a natural striker coming off the bench and now maybe even starting would be quite useful, even if Antoine Griezmann is the primary starting number 9. But we aren't entirely sure what Ronald Koeman's plans are just yet. I think Ansu Fati might eventually move into the middle, but at 18 years old in October and with his dribbling ability, I keep him on the wing for now. So that means Barca are looking for a center forward. As I said, Lautaro Martínez is not one of these options. If Inter really are dead set on putting a price tag of more than 100 million euros on the Argentine, Barcelona wouldn't be able to afford him. Now again, the Messi business does change things, but I for one would not like to see Inter Milan be able to set a number that Barcelona are expected to pay based on what they got for Messi. To me, Memphis Depay is a bit too expensive too, even if Koeman would like him. But if I'm Barca, I don't want to wait to bring in a young center forward with something to prove. So what I'm looking for is a center forward that could add about 10 goals and will have resale value if he doesn't reach that mark. That means I'm looking for a player under the age of 23 who doesn't have the pedigree to start right away, but it wouldn't be crazy for him to earn that spot. He should also have a value less than 30 million euros, which is about the max that Barca would have to reinforce his position. With those parameters, I narrowed it down to 4 names. My first choice is Donyell Malen, a PSV. He was linked to the Blaugrana back in January before the Martinez rumors picked up, and for good reason. He's made 4 appearances under Koeman for the national team with a goal against Germany in a Euro qualifier. He scored 17 goals in 25 appearances before going down with a knee injury in January. In the Eredivisie, it was a goal every 108 minutes, the exact same mark that Luis Suárez had over his Barcelona career, albeit regularly against much tougher defenses. The 21-year-old is still not back from his injury, so he probably wouldn't pass his medical. If he could, now would be the time to strike, with his value arguably at its low point, but still close to 30 million euros, according to Transfermarkt, which is where the figures will come from for the rest of this video. Even though Malen knows Koeman, his agent Mino Raiola might be an obstacle. So maybe it's a bad idea to have my second pick also be another Raiola client. Myron Boadu, another Dutch center forward, is just 19 years old and scored like gangbusters this year for AZ Alkmaar. 20 goals and 13 assists in 39 appearances is a good haul for the young man. He also made his debut for the Netherlands national team under Koeman back in November, scoring a goal against Estonia in a rout. His price tag could be under 20 million, largely because one season is still a rather small sample size. I think he needs to play, so Koeman should only push for him if he would have him in his plans definitely. Maybe Alexander Isak should have been the second choice, and he does check all the boxes. He scored 16 goals last season, 9 in the Liga in 37 appearances, but 7 in 7 in the Copa del Rey. He's still just 20, plus he came off the bench 63% of the time last year for La Real. My issue with Isak has nothing to do with his on-field performances. He is growing as a player and showed that he's a big game player with strong showings against Real Madrid, Athletic Club, and Barcelona last year. The issue instead is the 30 million euro buyback that Borussia Dortmund reportedly has on the Swede, plus the fact that Real Sociedad can hold out on his current release clause, which is more than double that. Neither the Basques nor the Germans would have any reason to sell. The last option is an odd one for a lot of reasons. How about Luis Suárez? No, not the Uruguayan, the Colombian one, whose contract is owned by Watford but played for Real Zaragoza last season in the second division. The 22-year-old scored 19 goals in 39 matches for the Zaragozans, and with Watford relegated, this seems like a low-risk, high-reward move to me. He really came into his own last season and should be available for under $10 million. If Braithwaite is sold, which is likely, Suárez would basically be his replacement, and almost a decade younger. Should have plenty of resale value if things don't work out. His ceiling is the lowest of these four, but I think he's just scratching the surface of how good he could be. Now we move on to the midfield. A midfielder, Dan? Barca don't need any midfielders. Probably not, with Rakitic, Vidal, and maybe some of Busquets' minutes ready to be snatched up by Puig, Pjanic, and possibly Carlos Aleñá. That would mean that Rafinha is sold, and I'm not entirely sold myself on Matheus Fernandes, who didn't really impress with his 3 appearances with Real Valladolid, though COVID did break up any chance he had of settling in. I'm not sure Manchu or Oriol Busquets will be hanging around this year either. If one of Fernandes, Manchu, or Oriol Busquets does stay, you can throw out this suggestion. But with losing Rakitic and Vidal, I think Barca would be wise to bring in a young, tough-tackling midfielder that would be cheap now, but has tons of potential. If Coutinho stays, that crowds the midfield more than might be possible for another player of any profile to come in. Honestly, I can't imagine Barcelona bringing in another midfielder, but here goes nothing. Let's address the rumors first. Koeman may like Donny van de Beek, but Ajax has reportedly put a €55 million price tag on the 23-year-old. Van de Beek didn't have as good a season this year as he did alongside De Jong and De Ligt, but he still has an insanely high ceiling. Before Koeman arrived, he was much more heavily linked with Man U and Real Madrid. He can play in a double pivot, but I would assume that Koeman would use him in a 4-2-3-1 as the middle of the three, where he plays with the national team. Either way, I think he may be too expensive for this window, and he's not the exact profile I'm looking for, even if he's more talented than anyone else on this list. Georginio Wijnaldum is a Champions League winning player who actually starts in the middle of that three behind the striker for the Netherlands under Koeman, and Barca could do Liverpool a favor by taking him off their hands so they can more easily bring in Thiago from Bayern. His contract is up this summer at Liverpool, so Barca could swing a deal for Wijnaldum on a bargain. That said, the midfielder is going to be 30 in November, and I'm looking for somebody that won't block Riqui Puig and Carlos Aleñá. Unsurprisingly, of all the players that I'll mention today, the soon-to-be 30-year-old is the most likely to arrive at the Camp Nou this summer. Last year I suggested Florentino from Benfica, and this year was a mixed bag for the Portuguese midfielder. He's also a little pricey for this summer if you ask me, with AC Milan and English clubs like Leeds United heavily linked with the player. So instead, I've opted for some less familiar names. Maxence Caqueret, who we saw for Lyon as they upset Manchester City in the Champions League quarterfinals, is just what I'm looking for. A defense-first midfielder who is good with a pass, but at this point in his career, his calling card is making up space and shutting things down in the middle. He did exceptionally well in Lyon's middle block against City, with a number of step-ins and interceptions. He isn't slow either, and at just 20 and potentially available for less than €10 million, I think Barca should take a hard look at this player. Another option could be Boubakary Soumaré of Lille. He's a tall, technical midfielder who is good with the ball at his feet, mobile, and can win 50-50 battles. With the sale of Victor Osimhen and the ambitions of the French club with those funds, including purchasing Jonathan David, Lille are in no position to sell, and the 21-year-old Soumaré could be valued at more than $40 million, which makes him a bit pricey. There are a ton of other players that I considered here, but I went with Man City defensive midfielder Angel Herrera as my last pick. Well, he's only a Man City player in name. Valued at less than €10 million, City may even agree to send him on loan again after decently successful loans at NYCFC, then Huesca, then Granada last year. He knows La Liga, can't get stuck in a tackle, and could be worse with the ball at his feet, the main requirements for this spot. Let's switch gears from a position that I don't think needs to be reinforced to a position that probably should be a priority, the outside backs. You thought I'd say center backs, didn't you? We'll save them for last. At left back, Jose Casu is apparently the rumored choice, but Casu was also reportedly the only player not named in Valencia's fire sale, and so the 25-year-old may not actually be available for the same bargain price. He's currently valued at close to €50 million, but would check all the boxes. He would immediately step in as a starter for Jordi Alba, and at least split time in ways that Lucas Digne and Junior Firpo never have. Angelino, another player owned by Man City, was loaned to RB Leipzig midway through the season and took over the starting left-back spot there. He would cost around €30 million, and he hasn't really stuck anywhere. There have been a ton of stops already in the 23-year-old's career, including trips to the US, Netherlands, and Spain with Girona, plus Germany, obviously, and youth football with Man City in the UK. RB Leipzig is the best we've seen of him, and I think Barca can find something better. My choice at the left-back spot would be Rayan Ait-Nouri, a 19-year-old who likes to get forward and contributed 3 assists for Angers this season while only playing about 50% of all minutes. He does have to work on his defending, but his pace and attacking potential make him worth the €20 to €25 million that he is currently valued at. I'd love to see Juan Miranda succeed, or Junior Firpo for that matter, but I think Ait-Nouri has the highest potential of the three. He's already on the taller side at the left-back spot, like Miranda, but I think he has what it takes to make the grade. If there isn't enough in the budget to try to reinforce both fullback spots, and I do think the left back spot is more the priority, I hope the move is for Sergiño Dest. The 19-year-old had 5 assists for Ajax this year, and while he had rough showings and needs to improve his defense, he has gotten better over the course of the year. Of everybody I've talked about on this list, Dest is the one I've seen the most. And yes, there are concerning parts of his game, but I can't think of many young right backs with higher potential. He's valued around 20 million euros, and I think that's more than a fair price to get him to Barca instead of seeing him flourish at Bayern in the near future. This would be the time to make this deal, because while Semedo can do a job and should be the regular starter again this season, I'm definitely in the camp that right back is a spot that should look to be upgraded in time. He can stick around while someone matures into the spot, so no need to desperately try to offload Semedo now. Emerson is officially the other option, and I've liked what I've seen from the 21-year-old at Real Betis this season. I think he would really surprise people in a Barca uniform, and honestly, I take my chances with him. And for those wondering why I picked 2 19-year-olds when the club should be getting back to promoting from La Masia, well, unlike at the midfield and winger positions, there is no prodigy on the doorstep of the first team at the moment. Sergio Akemi is 22 now, and I don't know if what we saw from Akemi this year at Barcelona B was better than what we saw at Real Betis from Firpo, even if we haven't seen Firpo's best in a Barca uniform. As for the right back spot, Daniel Moreira is also 22, and he's shown some things both defensively and going forward, but I don't think he's first team quality. The other option is Sergio Vazanes, but he's still 19 himself, currently out with injury, and just coming off a season with Juvenil A and entering his first year with Barca B, so he's still a bit away from the first team. Finally, let's talk center backs, and it'll be a quick conversation. If Jean-Clair Dodibo stays, wait a year for Eric Garcia. If he wants to come, he'll come next summer for free. If not, Barca shouldn't pay more than 15 million euros for him. Between Lenglet, Piqué, Todibo, and Araujo, I think Barca's center back options are good for next year. I know people are calling for Lenglet and Piqué to go after the Bayern performance, but honestly, that performance was a lot more about the whole team and everything going on than it was just about those two, who I thought had individually good seasons, even if the team conceded more than usual with Ter Stegen in net, who himself didn't have his best season. This was fun, but as I said at the start, it's impossible to know how Barcelona's transfer window is going to look, because it's all based on player sales. And even then, we're still not sure how much money the club will have to spend on transfers. If Barca can't offload some combination of Rakitic, Vidal, Umtiti, maybe Luis Suárez, maybe Felipe Coutinho, and I wouldn't even count Jordi Alba, Gerard Piqué, or Sergio Busquets, the club can all but forget about bringing in any transfers that could make a difference. Remember, Trincao and Pedri are basically the reinforcements, and they give me confidence that Barcelona will be pretty solid with depth on the wing. If you have players that meet the parameters that I set out, younger players who can be found at a reasonable price, around the 30 million euro mark or so, make sure you leave those names down in the comments below. And if you want more content like this, be sure to check out this week's podcast where Francesca and I discuss Barca's transfer strategy. Get that wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications. And as always, until next time, Forza Barca.